And so first of all, this morning we recite the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutta. I prostrate to the three noble, rare, sublime ones. Thus today here at one time, the Bhagwan was dwelling on a massive vulture's peak mountain in Rajgir, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagwan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld these five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to this Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates as also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, and not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore in emptiness, Shariputra, therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no ear, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no island element, and so on up to and including no mind element and no mental conscious element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Payaka Gati Gati Paragati Parasangati Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan rose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagwan having thus spoken, the Venerable Saripatiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised. That's spoken by the Bhagwan. Short mandala offering. Ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Taking my undertaking refuge in generating bodhicitta prayer. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings.
다 단다. 알아주 찌름부치기. 아니, 람준 남송기. 온거 다가란이야. 예외 숨으로 군지 닝비 된 시체 성제. 다 람기 자와 나바 숨. 람준 남숨 때네. 야외 숨으로 군지 닝비기 된디레스다. 산제 쯤된디기 다숭 탐제. 나빠지 숨을 망부여. 건주도 다지 건주 대행하게 좀 유디다. 되네베 양 지금 사회 명아 안들비지 여베나 대다 탐지 막즉 대세서로 비나 샤시 네 삼로 땅 대부지간 샤베이나 뒤나 숨가 되고 그래스 가리가 되고 그래서도 람게 자와 나바 숨도 되고 그래스 이 나네 다 개치슈디 가리나가 되고 요래 시두잠베 아니 다 닝뷰나는 닝뷰 된 치슈디 가르스나 난 동원 얘기 다 왔더래 리인도 잠베 간지 동원 얘기 땀들이야 그런 즉 퇴섬직다 삼로 땅주직다 아니 마충보이나 아니 계획 송도바 가서 퇴바지 공바지 깔래 가서 잡셔는 많이 동주로 당샤베 이나양 아니 산지기 템바단 제베 고급 치슈다 퇴바인도 잠베 저런 부치게 계획 송으로 문제 인구가 되는데 가도 인행하라는 쪽에다 냠랭기 티를 송구를 해서 랍적견만 나신이 제제 당아져 드린 게 퇴성체 쪽어디 오마주고 하와 오마주베기 저자디 사모동반이래 근데 이제 말은 정말 깨워서 그래.
And so here to sort of at the beginning we take the very first part of J. Rimpoche's three principal aspects of the path, where he says that in relation to the three principal aspects of the path, he says that the three aspects of the path are the meaning of the entire essence of all of the teachings of the Buddhas. And so here, so this is talking in terms of the whole range of teachings, the words of the Buddha, which can include, of course, the Kangyo, but also the Kangyo, and including also the sort of the teachings of secret mantra, as well as other sort of secret pith instructions. The entire range of these teachings, if we were able to place them into three sort of categories. Then we could place them into these three principal paths of renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. Um, and if we took the real essence of all of those, it would be the instructions on emptiness, and then in terms of how to, hearing those teachings, contemplating, and then meditating on them. And so, uh, whatever merit and etc. we've created by doing recitations and other forms of practice, and being able to here, particularly to be able to hear and think about emptiness, and in particular, in our case today, to be studying the text on Entering the Middle Way by Chandrakirti, of which the main sort of subject material is that of emptiness, is a tremendous, great fortune.
마시다 원래 시부중구리 제장가 말아줘다 산지 좀된디 송르고 닝부디레 송대가 깔려야 한 단디 뒤를 알아줘다 지르점불링기 내단 자라제체 대가랑 알아줘 소소 심게 까니망부슈 지게 가는 로데가 깝들이야 아니 알아줘 라마다 겨울미치 손럽제 제제 겨울미치 제바 싸마인바 군딩기 인진 투투도 당한줄 암조나로 답에 바자드마 손에 바자베 슈칭부 슈지 겨울미치 제능한 주기 단다바도 지게 냠랭 가주 제토마도 소소기 되게 단전항래 냠랭 제토 요네면에 겨울미치 그 숭줄은 로는 안줄 바자 체휴난 게 체휴진 안줄 메즈나라 가르샤류 중요레세들 아 슈자베이나 동번이다 딘중당 동번이다 아니 장주선을 슈잡세제特别 딘트리기 당하란 소리야 중구 요네면에 겨울은 붙이기 배 우주 견증 안 졸다 아 암조나로다베 망체 암조 나대에서로 지어be 어떤 지식이 우주 견증 송고에게 nen가로부터 아니 다들 저런 붙이기 송고나시 상제기 땜발 직망부 직 지규 예배 나네 랑게 자와 넘버 숨다 알라바도 삼딘 중에 따와들지 또 삼노당에 좀 마숑비나 아니 산제 좀 된데 지금 예전 장면 숨도 지금 수단한 거 소다 이식을 쳐라 라고에게 된다데 먼저 유라 삼딘 중에 따와들 기회셔도 인도 전에 아니 딜 슈지 맞아봐나 아니 아주 소소소 고고 대대 손도 지다 아니 최대 양타버래 최 최당도 넣어버리나 아니 심지를 거두고 또 패마도 지기 아니 등진 때문에 로야 지다 아니 등진 배대 코란배 랑쇼나 도스데디에게 최지 차위나 아니 아주 대지 지금 방부로 봐 어디 있는데 말안주다 지금 얘기 중규 윤회면에 계란주의 고투구 윤회면에 아주 다른데 지금 겨울을 붙이다 공로급주 구실이 패니 근데 단단하죠. 초쇼되게 갑들이야. 군딩이 가지고 슈 잡셔. 스치지. 깔로나바나 신식이 알아한적이 정규연에면에 프랑스게 사자데 스쿠디오지랑 알아한적 아니 사와의 도주도 아니 계사단도 다른 부르시야. 저장가 대지게 가르쳐 그래. 남행 대수 용어라지래. 근데 요즘 배들이 두주지래야. 아니 아주 상마 좀지. 아니 사모동번이게 따와도 지게 제바체디 당하르게 수도나 망보지 사비 디불용 영원진 체제 아니 다단다 아주 쉬운디 마스터 세로나 쉬이
And so here, in terms of the here being able to encounter the sort of very essence of the Buddha's teaching at this time, and this time in the world, it seems like the world seems to be in a very coming to these teachings at a time when the world seems to be in a very urgent kind of situation, and perhaps even for ourselves, we may be struggling with sort of mental difficulties, that kind of thing. And yet we have had the tremendous fortune to encounter, for most of us, through this Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and not just to meet him, so to speak, but not just the sort of propensities or the sort of imprints to be able to meet with His Holiness, but also to be able to listen to his teachings, and to be able to also to be able to, and of course, to receive his teachings. As much as we are able to practice those, of course, it may be difficult for us to practice all of those, the things, the teachings that we've received from him. But at least we have a sort of main kind of sort of imprint to be able to receive. For to receive His Holiness's encouragement to us, to understand that if we were able to make effort to try to understand these difficult topics such as emptiness and dependent adoration, or to cultivate these sophisticated minds such as bodhicitta, then if we were able to make effort, then and practice as much as possible, it would be possible for us to slowly be able to develop these exalted states of mind. So here, and also having the sort of tremendous fortune to be able to meet here with, as J. Rimpoche is saying, the essence of the Buddha's teachings, the real core of the Buddha's teachings, the three principal aspects of the path, along with understandings such as dependent origination. And of course, this the Buddha practiced sort of merit and wisdom, accumulated the two accumulations of wisdom and merit over three countless eons in order to attain the view of dependent origination. And so, of course, so in that sense, and then to be able to pass those teachings on to other beings, and so therefore the dharma that we've encountered is a very pure form of the dharma. Of course, it's possible that we make mistakes in the way that we engage with the dharma, and then it's possible for us to almost to strengthen our sort of clinging, grasping, or to make other mistakes in relation to how we practice and engage with the Dharma. But that is sort of down to us. The Dharma itself, from its side, is very a sort of very pure form of the Dharma. And so we've come, so there's a tremendous fortune, and for us to have been able to have the merit to be able to come together here in a remote area, which for this retreat is quite hot, and many people have come far from home, and they've made the effort to meet here to examine the subjects such as dependent origination. And so we should recognize this and understand this tremendous merit that has brought us here, and the great opportunity that we have. Do people recite the prayer to Manjushri?
Session session
So we recite that maybe in the later session. I'm going to recite it in the Tibetan, but we can also recite it later in the actually, yeah. Screen.
So because I'm following the tradition of the great yogis, when just your wisdom is not only enough, when time to time you need to tame your ignorance. So it's a quite challenging. So you need always a support of Lama, not only just Lama inseparable of the Manjushri every time. If you look at all the biography of the great masters who is meditating on the emptiness, they are always guided by Manjushri. So we need this kind of method and help. So this is why I request to do the prayer to the Manjushri.
Essayer bien sûr d'écouter les enseignements, pas seulement par l'inconscient, de s'en remettre aussi aux organisations des Bouddhas, tels que Arya Chandrakirti. Et donc, c'est pourquoi c'est une excellente chose de pouvoir réciter cette prière pour nous aider à essayer de comprendre les enseignements.
지상어디 데모데메 갑리야 아니 지준 잠배양도 고mon도 준비 진준 잠배양기 패전차 예버디 나로리아 두 스페마체 페메강리아 레곰 묘데체 레곰 강라 리디여 데비체 레곰 디기 나로라 탄다 우모주비 베저디 남데베 꼼제베체 덴디 강라 에네 리디 웨 바르데베디 아니 사모똥바니
So then, as we recite the praise to Manjushri, then we sort of meditate on being Manjushri, and meditate on Manjushri, and in the right hand he holds right hand is held a lotus, and on the lotus flower there is a volume of text in which in this case we'll meditate on that as being the Chandrakirtis entering the middle way, and then on the left hand holds the sword, holds above a sword which is kind of blazing with sort of fire or light, and on the basis of that, when we imagine the illumination of that sort of fire, the light, the illumination from that sword blazing with wisdom, and on that basis we recite the Omarapasadani, the mantra of Manjushri, and then we also imagine also then being able to attain the all of the being able to attain all of the realizations of the spoken words of the Buddha, and also of all of the treatises, as well as at the end of the prayer we imagine that all of those that sort of wisdom and realization absorbing into us. And clearing away our ignorance, so that all of those realizations absorbing into us and clearing away all of our ignorance.
되냐요 드려요나 얘네들은 말 저거저거 롱지 제시하고 가르치는스는 얘네들이 춘주간으로 로시 레벨 깔이야 니 겨울음식 분들이 가가 강하자고 봐 가가 강하잖아 베깔라 링름 제당 아니리야 가가 강할랍남세 근데 고모조 거리야 강로메 롱나스 강로메 롱망고 토비오죠 제장가 고템지기 네 개발도 근데 저런 되니 지 등니 쉬러 더 나요 봐 롱로 더 나요 되니 줄란 또 필요이
So I also received the transmission of this text when I was about 4 years old. Myself and Rimpoche had an audience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and during that sort of process of the audience, and His Holiness passed on the transmission of Kongloma, the prayer to Manjushri, to us. And so, for those who are sort of have an interest in sort of transmissions of practices and texts, and those who wish to receive the transmission in the sect can also receive this transmission as the text from me to here today. So homage to the Lord Manjushri. Your wisdom is brilliant and pure like the sun, free from the clouds of the two obscurations. You perceive the whole of reality exactly as it is, and so hold the book of transcendental wisdom in your heart. You look upon all beings imprisoned within samsara and enshrouded by the thick darkness of ignorance and tormented by suffering. With the love of a mother for her only child, your enlightened speech endowed with 60 melodious tones, by the thundering roar of a dragon, awakens us from the sleep of destructive emotions and frees us from the chains of karma. Dispelling the darkness of ignorance, you wield the sword of the wisdom to cut through all the suffering. Pure from the very beginning, you have reached the end of the 10 bhumis and perfected all enlightened quads. Foremost of the evidence is your body is adorned with 112 marks of enlightenment. To Manjushri, the gentle voice, prostrate and pray, dispel the darkness from my mind. So then we do the recitation of the. They're going to do the recitation in French now. Sorry, they're going to do it in Tibetan, the phonetic Tibetan. So she's asking if they have the translation in French. So better to recite it in French rather than in Tibetan, she says.
So now you have edited French Manjushri.
So I'll read it again. Homage to the Lord Manjushri. Your wisdom is brilliant and pure like the sun, free from the clouds of the two obscurations. You perceive the whole of reality exactly as it is, and so hold the book of transcendental wisdom at your heart. You look upon all beings imprisoned within samsara and shrouded by the thick darkness of ignorance and tormented by suffering. With the love of a mother for her only child, your enlightened speech, endowed with 60 melodious tones, like the thundering roar of a dragon, awakens us from the sleep of destructive emotions and frees us from the chains of karma. Thus, dispelling the darkness of ignorance, you wield the sword of wisdom to cut through all suffering. Pure from the very beginning, you have reached the end of the 10 bhumis and perfected all enlightened qualities. Foremost of the Buddha says, your body is adorned with the 112 marks of enlightenment. To Manjushri, the Manju Gosha, the gentle voiced, I prostrate and pray to dispel the darkness of my mind. And then the colophon is, clear the dark ignorance of my mind by the rays of your love and supreme knowledge in order to understand the sutras and commentaries. Grant the luminosity from intelligence.
좋은 건데야. 아니 받는 다왔다고 얘기. 제정한테 가르치는 거를 원도 저걸 냠자 세미네. 조배 상계 출로 원 통시. 원 초시. 디딘 중위 디니 통화의 실업네 병 고가 버려. 그렇지. 다 지게 뒤손 그래.
So right at the beginning, so then as we start to look at the text of Madhyamaka Avatara, and Chandrakirti in the very first verse of the sixth chapter talks about, which is the chapter on the manifest, the sixth ground of the bodhisattvas. He talks about, the first verse reads, on directly facing, which is the manifest, he abides in the mind of meditative equipoise and turns to the attributes of perfect Buddhahood. This bodhisattva who sees the truth of dependent origination attains true cessation by dwelling in wisdom. I think we'll put it on the screen too for those on Zoom.
퍼진을 투모모임에 체주를 해요 봐. 그래서 진배 퍼진의 가상 투모모임에 체주 송송아. 아니 주림 저봐. 안 준주. 다 대다 탐제 약고 쉬우지 차베 쉬우들이야. 아니 something 비도 쉬우지 레고요. 다 something 이값소 아니 den시 타라라베 셈기 아니 그래서 우리 den시 타라게 남샤를 신도 켜봐 차지. 아니 den시 타라를 신도 켜봐 토베 아니 something이 신내다 하동 쉬우지기 케슈버스네다 비도하고 쉬우지 나를 신내다 하동 요래 아니 동영원성도 통삽을 해야 돼. 얘는 사투에 가서 아니 something이 퍼진 용선 줘봐. 아니 비타고 싶지 차원도 전에 한 텔레 때문에 사투에 가서 시러를 때문에 곡된 곡바티 비타고 싶지 않다. 캐도 쇼바세요. 단대나는 면접이 여대가 텔레 때네. 아니 동반일로 제주도 냠버를 샤베 qabla 응아르당 면대백이 아니 그래서 우리 진수 퍼진 쪽이 냠내 체백깔 깔래 큐니 메디는 게 아니 네버티버진 되죠 토바 연자 온도 초벌 상기기 살아파 초벌라 깔래 큐니 메디바 베큐니 베즈 네버시버 메디니 손도르치 어딘데 윤용 온도 초바 냠샤 세네데 조바 상기처럼 온 조시 디딘 중위 디니 통화데스 다디 쇼르 드시잖아요. 년데 송쇼.
And so here, so as we've been discussing throughout the text, each of the different perfections have their own very special, unique qualities and sort of characteristics and elements to them. And so, first of all, as we discussed in generosity, but then also in ethical disciplines, we've got patience and in joyous effort, etc. And then having, with the practice of those, then we need a really perfect form of concentrated mind, or sort of or what is it called, a meditative absorption, which is the fifth of the perfections. And then from there, we have to we then apply that perfect concentrated mind to turn that concentrated mind to this extremely profound topic of the two truths, and here, so that then we using these very sophisticated minds of shamatha and vipassana, we then engage in looking at the topic of emptiness and the two truths. Now here on the so this is when we reach the sixth chapter, the sixth ground, and the manifest. And here, what is being said is that there's it's special sort of qualities that are attained on the sixth ground, the special characteristics of this sixth of the perfections in this presented here as a very unique form of wisdom, which is sort of a meditative equipoise, which literally faces directly, turns directly towards the emptiness, but in the meditative equipoise, the single-pointed meditative equipoise on emptiness, and the other, and there's some very unique qualities of that meditative equipoise, which is not found in the prior perfections, where it kind of directly faces emptiness without any kind of effort or difficulty to engage with its object.
제가 섰단다. 디 슈마 그란조야. 디 프렌치 나로라 탄다 우모 공부를 수 요르기 말해. 여러분. 아, 데리지 특별한 떡이 여베이나 단다 타가랑 게 짜와 타가랑 고 심지 저거 고조가 타가랑 게 디나로라야. 서 두벌려야 투모모님 베게 동반일라 제지도 냠바 샤당데 싸움말에 대해서 만다바지 가르송을 쓰려면 텔라 때네 땡징 대월 중화 깻니 디바 점지 사메 테코나니 통베 전주서 버서 구비니 땡징 대월 중외 깻니 디바 점지 사메 테코나니 세마도 사메 테코나니 그도 송도 말해 땡징 대월 중외 깻니 디바 점지 디 빼대 내가 전부 송요다 대인도 전배디 망보지기 도난게 지금에도 전배 아니 알란즈 제정가 동반일을 제주도 냐바 샤와 다가란 게 아니 덴진당 당진 삼아 세루요래 매바 뭔가로요래 제제 송야다 창매 송요래데 아니 라와도 디나로래야 칙칙 nembe견지 반대다와래 덴진 레월 중 개인 디바 점지 삼회 태권하니 세지 땡징 레월 중에서 초직 자르고 해야 돼 공부루루 공부 투모만이 차대요 재생과 공부루루 투모만이 공부 차원도 전에 니기 공부대 반den다와 잡이기 소소 반den다와 잡이기 더 치딜 믹스 다고 되는데 딱 그도 지 라베이나 여름부터 차대요다 여름부터 재생과 아주 단다 망체지다 남주는 망부 송주 년 차려인데 알아봐. 세상 그런 쪽이 얘기를 봐. 세미나를 세상가 아니 년중 태양 남다 심지기 가자 저번에 레메 전주 편조 대회 주면도 런던에 그래. 니루 도베 싫어. 니루 도베 싫어 민데나 년중 정주 셈다 검제자 세베 자와 줘봐 민유베 대이칠 덴제도가 탈라베 가전선은 인중의 전주선 자신부 시부지를 돼 딜러 가서 지금 공잡샤베 있나요 덴진세도 말했어 덴진세야라 가르쳐고를 세도 동리곰 송요 말에 덴제곰 송샤래 다 덴제곰나 간제스 지게 간제 아니 폴리기어와 가전선은 동리디 덴진데다 진당고소 게베 로차디요. 동리 또 다음에도 싫었어 봐. 다음에도 싫었대. 덴진 진당고소 게베 로인데 덴데 진당고소 게베 로 곰소나 사랑다고 봐. 차우야 알려서는 장어마 불리고요. 장무슈셔는 차우마 중도요. 비니르 봐. 데디그 삼로에 두선배 신이 탑이하고 잘래. 제르무 제기 덴데 공부를 해서 동리 공수마성 덴데 공부를 해서 콩디 관리를 했을때 당연히 콩들이다. 리버쇼를 시켜주고 콩디 반에 나왔다 베게 니나를 가서 반에 나왔다 버디 공부루루 송들이 땡진저와 중앙 땡네 동반이 도시 땡네 나와데 티니 우메라면서 다 여러분이 딱딱한 나이들이 어딜이야 콩레도 선배 내가죠 산지 좀 된디게 어머예 dharma 예도 들어와 세주와 어디 찍딜래 요래 다 대조 참말로기 다 리버로디 다 월말래 단단히 대주주다.
So here, in terms of this is sort of a very uncommon instruction that's being given here in connection with Chandrakirti's verse, because in Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary to Chandrakirti's entering the middle way, they're called J. Rinpoche's commentary, Illuminating the Intent. particularly in that in commentary to this verse. First, J. Rinpoche is always sort of seeking to find a very uncommon instruction from Chandrakirti in terms of the way of meditating on emptiness. So, which is unlike. What's being said in the central text here is that the way of meditating on the meditative equipoise on emptiness in this particular ground is very unique and unlike all of the others that have gone before it. But in commentary to this, in commentary to this verse, Lama Tsongkhapa talks about how he says he brings in the topic of dependent origination. So he says so the mind. So Jeremy says in this manifest ground of the sixth ground in the meditative equipoise, the mind which is perfectly abiding in the meditative equipoise. On the basis of that, there is there is the practitioner sees emptiness in an uncommon way with the condition of perceiving the dependent origination, the way in which dependent origination operates. And so in this particular sixth ground meditative equipoise, that there is a very special connection here with also the dependent origination. So not just emptiness, but also the understanding of dependent origination. And we can this in this very specific in most of the presentations of this talk about how the single-pointed meditative equipoise and emptiness is able to clear away self-grasping and clinging to true existence or intrinsic existence. All of the sort of presentations do that, but J. Rinpoche has brings something added to these understanding, and added understanding to these texts, where he talks about how not just the profound emptiness is understood, but beyond that we need to understand the profound meaning of dependent origination, which is this is a sort of uncommon sort of pith instruction coming through from Nagarjuna. So this is something that really J. Rinpoche, only really J. Rinpoche draws out of these texts, whereas others focus mainly on the lack of intrinsic reality, but not on the dependent originated side of phenomena. And so we see this in his three principal aspects of the path, where he says, in the ninth verse of three principal aspects of the path, he says, if you do not have the wisdom realizing the ultimate nature, even if you gain familiarity with renunciation and awakening mind, you will not be able to cut the root of samsaric existence. So strive in the means of realizing dependent origination. So here he actually doesn't, so there he's saying that, first of all, of course, the minds of renunciation and bodhicitta are not able to cut through the root of samsara. But then what he's also saying is that that we need, obviously, those minds can't cut through the root of samsara. But then, not only do we need he's going on to say that not only do we need the mind realizing the ultimate nature of things, the wisdom of realizing selflessness or emptiness, but he brings in here the real need to realize dependent origination. So we may have a doubt about this. We wonder why is he saying that rather than emptiness? Because emptiness, the wisdom of selflessness, or the wisdom realizing the emptiness of phenomena, is a mind that lies in the wisdom understanding the selflessness. It lies in direct opposition to the mind clinging to the intrinsic existence of it, like the same way that hot and cold are in opposition to each other. And so therefore we need he's saying here that we need a meditative equipoise related to dependent origination as well. And this is a sort of uncommon sort of aspect that J. Rinpoche sees coming from Nagarjuna through Chandrakirti. So then we're going to, now this is the sort of scriptural sort of citation of it, but then we're going to look into the reasons for that.
동반이야 지금 또 겨울은 뭐 지금 두지 거리는 된 다과를 시 겨울은 뭐 지금 동반이 숭숭이 다 지금 암전 나로야 먼저 마선에 다지 마치는 민리딩 선도지 고용도 준비 아니 그 강도도 지 공부하시 자와시 하시 대양아 단다 친이 자장 다람살라다 배 대로니 휴자란 레차리 아니 니 배신 다 가서 다 잡게 자고도 와 인기를 아들이 지갑이야 저게 동번이 우메雄장배 가려야 강도도 삼로스당 대체도 준비 아 동번이 세도 준비 베나 팅규베게 다와데 차르비 샤웨나 다 다와 타슈디 문진치고 와레 아니 나로네 다와 타슈디 아 최 컨디지 이나야 저는 딱시기 원에 아니 저게 도 시제 주구주간 로소나 다딘 가자 참을 때도 와봐 근데 되지 인도 전에 되지 말한 적 누구세게 삼로지다 되지기 진석이 시지라서나 아주 마소네다 차소녀 뭐 용선做过 介绍기 시디라 그랬어 미디세들와 미국 탐지 용사기 시드 미디세들 근데디다 거와 노서 때원도 전에 다지 다제다 채원도 전에 코랑기 유 코랑기 얘네 다 자와니네 지게 강사스니다 세디 민두 냠베기 삼로도 또또 콜게 버들지다 뷰다고도 개요 말데 이제 삼로 땅 잡에 쉬고를 그뒤나 공도 지자고 삼도 잡에 되게 네버 지 당진도 스케베 갑라야 그도 좀 손에 받쳐도 그요 버듯이 미국이 시탐제 파 라도 그 옆에 손으로 버시 두대 이나야 텔레 템베 지 가와직 가려서나 다 등신들의 매우 차고도 세게 고급지 열할 이나야 빨리 지 가르도 쓰려나 아니 최 탐지 알라 단다 낭대야다 네 단다 지 롱제대야다 타와도 얘기 지 레전드를 잡에 최망보지 지기 망보지 제대야 지 탐지 가르로 추었음 신문에 동선 로되어지마도 한 지요 말에 섬에 시가다를 통하게 내가도 휴충보지 레원도 ཉེ gen de ka de shu ka lan gen ge charang ge tung ni sam ma dang ko ne ten de le ya kum shi ja gu yo res ten de lo kum shi ja we je su dong ba ni le kum ji ja we na ko dang do su ma da ji ko re si ka ji na wa te le de ne ani u me shung ta da je ru ji shung de ni yang ne yang de je won de zhen be ka tu yi ne be je ge na lo la 동번이 슈제베 걸로 땡들 슈자고 거야지 양나양 뭐 양나양도 까나야지 이런 것이 통음만이 제주지로 거제 아니 신이 지금 아주 마선에 동버지고 거와 잠만이 봐 딘중대 냠도 거도 것이 보고 요래세야지 아니 또도 지게 또 인기 또 투지 같은 다 저런 것이 같은 저런 것이 같은 데는 또도 지게 세미나로야 알지 가서래 팽부를 쇼종소
So then sort of looking into the reasons, in relation to this presentation of the importance also of the dependent origination as well as the sort of empty nature of things. And to sort of reflect on a personal experience, a personal sort of history of this, and I've listened to His Holiness speaking again and again. It's sort of, I've heard again and again His Holiness speaking about the idea of, the importance of dependent origination as well as emptiness. And I've also done, engaged in some studies over the years, including my studies in the monastery and then also my studies later in the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics in Dharamsala. So sort of 20 or 20, nearly 30 years going on of doing studies of engaging with these texts, thinking about them, and particularly in terms of the view of emptiness in relation to the Prasangika school of Buddhist philosophy, and which is recognized as the hardest of the tenet systems to understand. So from on this sort of, from in this presentation from the Prakasanga school is this idea that whatever phenomenon it is, whether it's a person or another sort of external, another phenomena, that there's the subtlest form of the object of negation is that whenever we search within the basis of designation for the designated phenomena, that we're unable to, they're not able to find something. And if we were able to find even the subtlest of kind of reference points or the subtlest basis on which we would find within the basis of designation, that would provide us with a place for which to, sort of a locus for which to cling, and therefore that will allow, on the basis of that grasping, then for instance, from the finding a person from the side of the aggregates, then that will act as a cause for us to develop the sort of mental afflictions from that grasping. So I had a little sort of meditating and thinking about self-grasping and meditating on emptiness. I have a little bit of a sort of understanding of the process of what self-grasping means, what self-grasping is, and a little bit sort of looseness to sort of feel a kind of looseness in relation to the way encountering things through seeing the process of how self-grasping works. But it's sort of also the problem is to eliminate, sort of it's the eliminating the grasping. In order to eliminate the grasping, then understanding that just purely from the emptiness side of things, then, but all phenomena sort of appear, we make use of them, we enjoy them, and so they have this feeling that, but that's all sort of that all appears and takes place, and we engage with it through mistaken mind. So then that would sort of lead us more towards the position of the extreme of nihilism, that there's really nothing at all, that those things don't exist. So then it's really started to understand with the great kindness of I spoke to some of my teachers and asked and questioned them about this, and they explained that feeling that you have of sort of falling towards the extreme of nihilism is because you not only need to meditate on emptiness, but need also to meditate on dependent origination, and sort of very essential to understand the of course very difficult, but very essential to understand that. So in all of Rimpoche's texts, you'll find this. Not only does he implore us to put effort into understanding emptiness, but he implores us to make effort into understanding dependent origination. This is an uncommon characteristic of Rimpoche's teaching, that not only is understanding of wisdom important, but also dependent origination. And this, the great kindness, for the great fortune and kindness of the great kindness of my teachers in His Holiness the Dalai Lama, have sort of started to understand this.
Dindi satuwa degi ani shirabbe lhagwa yudu zambe tas tanda simju chukwa di shirab lhagwa tobarwa chazanga shirab lhagwa degi topji ani samotongba ni tenji jawar jume samotongba ni dela komba degi korangi gyugi chuniyam tongba ni di tongdangde kandiji sigi yore sidu dungni da kaza dungnian da dawe chuni ngodo gyubi chirdang 사투비기 명들어야 아니 벌써
Zopa.
사투봉원도 쳐봐. 원도 촉세. 원도 쳐봐 세네. 원봐 세대. 원봐 세베디 manifest 세들와. 제장 가리 manifest 차버리. 슬랍드 좀진 숨송지. 좀진 남 숙치주지 가려서나. 동년다를 주니 원도 규를 싫다세. 되는 거 같이 송요. 제장가 송년다를 주니 원도 제 세대다 남지 춘이원도 제 세니 브루를 또저 개발용 해야 돼. 동년의 레벨 춘이 통당데 춘이 통당 신뢰 개발도 하고 지 춘이 통당을 개발 개려 말인데 춘이 춘이 통에 통당면 나지 춘이 용어를 개발해요 말에 얘는 춘이 통당을 맨다고 지금 이 개발도 사고도 와 춘이 코랑기 원래 개발면 통당기 개발해요 말때 있나야 춘이 통백가봐야 디 제소 이펙트 마소네 민다 때치 가리용 거스도 아니 최단지 송년다라와 세티 딩엘라 코랑게 면에 모두 봐 코랑게 모두 규만답이 자와체바 세직도 시 토구요래데 송년단 다베 세두선베 아니 알아 내가 란주게 빼나 에 송년디 아 제장가 빼 탐제 나는네 동반일을 땜 띵중기 빼 초도 교바디 송년지 송구요 봐 제장가 김제니 가르쳐도 선배 아란주게 다 먹을 맛 도저는 말리그리 그냥 그냥 됐을 때 얘기하는 제박에도 아란주게 아 시험나도 스테 온도 선배 아란주 직딩 한가발이야 아니 동년들 저기 춘이 빼약 쉬리 가려래슬라나 아란주게 아 그나 동거 시험나는 도저 다 용배 까봐야 아니 시경은에 차 인제네 소소 찍고 찍경지 비경은에 시작이요. 그런 경우에는 이나양 알아도 야 100% 비경은에 여버지 시작도 연구 여비 이나양 안동기 생기 나로라야 코수니에 동거 친이바 말에 세가 삼로디 가르전스나 아니 동거 친이바 임베 동안데 니 이나양 동니 민두스 매바 만로바디 가르전스나 동바다 셰고니 태바점 텔레데니 송인 샵초게 데인도섬에 최탐제 코랑기 뇌네 요 말에데 자바치 초그레 송년지 제정가 티룹세네레 땡진다와 준비게 남샤테 야니 야테고 그래 동바 인상 땡중 태고그리 세게 땡즈드 마소는 예야디 아저기다 송년기 뺀 초도 교회 인도섬에 제장 단다디 나로라야 아니 송년을 왜 주님 원도 주시다
So in here in the sixth text in the sixth chapter, sorry, the sixth in Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary to the entering the middle way, the illuminating the intent, in relation to this here in these first verses, talking about the profound emptiness and the way to see the profound emptiness. And talking about this uncommon wisdom that is achieved on the sixth ground, this sort of very unique form of wisdom that is attained on the sixth ground. And here he talks about that in relation to, as we said, dependent origination, understanding dependent origination. So the understanding this sixth ground is called the manifest. So what is it that is manifest? What manifest? What understanding manifests? And here, what it's talking about is manifesting not just the understanding of suchness, but the understanding that phenomena are like a reflection. So the manifestation of understanding of suchness, which is like a reflection. That's literally how it's said. And this form of a manifest understanding of suchness like reflection is superior to the other forms of suchness. So it's not that it's the way of seeing things. It's not the nature of the nature of suchness itself is the same. This being seen is the same, but it's the way of seeing, the way of engaging with this suchness that is which is an uncommon characteristic on this ground. So seeing all seeing things as all this uncommon understanding is to see things as all of them as being like a reflection, that they don't exist in any way from their own side, and that they are illusory. And it's very often said that the best example, the most profound example of being able to help us to understand emptiness and dependent relation is that of the example of a reflection of a face in a mirror. That it's the best and it's sort of a worldly example which will help us to understand the deeper meaning of dependent emptiness and dependent relation. So, for instance, when we come in front of a mirror, we stand in front of a mirror, our face is reflected in the mirror, and our face is completely reflected. 100% from all aspects of our face are completely reflected in the mirror. But in the mind, of course, we understand that this reflection of this is not a real face; it is a reflection of the face in the mirror. But still, so we understand that emptiness of the fact that the being empty of a real face in the mirror. But the mirror, there's still an appearance. The reflection is still there. The reflection exists, and so this reflection comes together between the meeting of our face and the mirror, and so there's still a sort of functionality. Although the face is not the reflection is not a real face, there's still a functionality, and so this way we can understand. We can have a sort of confidence to start understanding the meaning of both, the emptiness, but particularly of the dependent origination in respect to this example of the reflection in the mirror.
아니 띵중 때는 봐야 돼. 깔리 쉬어주세요다. 대도 준비 제름 붙이다. 아니 삼제 매제에 라마 망보지기 아니 초사들장 낭사기 답에 슈잡서 용수 저번에 가가 난 것도 저도 똥바 때는 봐야 지고 저들에도 또가 때는 밥집에 쉬고라 아니 농야 똥바 인상 자와치 초우리에세 딜레다 저 딕마토데 아니 신에 다 조사들자 등에 고도면도 대삼도 다 디치도 아니 가르치고 그래서도 아니 신에 다 숑망 볼로야 조사들자 망보 제고야 다와도 제르미치 메지기 남탈나라 제비나 아 제르미치 지준 잠배양게 시시 중제 항에게다 동반이게 따와디 디코면도 쓰려 아니 저런 게 다조 안에 숑디 무다발리다 따고 요래 반대 나와저게 오마치스 템고 요래 아바도 라마 때문에 라마만 우지 도데 라만 로네 따단다 벽하와 정대 나로래야 아니 동반이 이거 돌로 디시다 치셔더데 지르ren다 버려샤 렌다고 군들 주 얘네 렌다베 군들네 아니 동바텐 밥수 쇼라 땡중게 따와 땡 밥도 아니 더지라 야 송주学的 잠샤네 계란랑 게 통만 뭐 슈답지 야고 고아민다주 고그리스 더지도 라마 댄스 테네 계란 슈답네 고아민다주 고그리 얘네 계란로 로쳐버스 제르무칠이야 지준 잠배양 게 담아된다 망보지 된대래도 와 세상가 담아 좀도 고아야 되다 제르무칠이 세상가 깔레 카슈데 이미지나로 단데 제르무칠 우마 공부를 없었는데 차라리 니즈 좀 그래 아니 당연히 신인분하러 연구를 사실 직전하러 연구를 아무데려야 아니 텐데 가서 그래 네버 점기 네 자제 대봐 아디 답에 백깔리 시비치 두스 고아들라 딜라 당원에 타네베 로 콤지디 양내양도 땡고야지 차송세 어제버지 양내양도 답에지 그냥 안줄리베 디 가서 그래 랍자데만 손에 양도 슈잡서 디레싱 손도지 양내양도 송구래 어딘가로 고토버지 고유스래
And so it's often sort of said, and J. Rimpoche is saying to us that determining the meaning of emptiness is not so difficult, but the ability to determine and delineate exactly the meaning of dependent origination is an extremely complicated and difficult thing to do, and we see that this is where sort of J. Rimpoche is sort of in many of his texts is putting a huge amount of focus onto understanding the not just the empty nature of things, but also their dependently originated nature. And so and how because things are empty, because they're empty, they can function in a can function in a conventional way, and we see this in Lama Tsongkhapa's spiritual biography, where he is he has an encounter with the Manjushri and asks him about his view of emptiness and the way in which he's engaging in his understanding of emptiness, and Manjushri advises him, until you can understand these emptiness and then the relation of dependent origination, and then you should purify and purify sort of negative actions and accumulate a merit, and also to read the great treatises again and again. And so in order to understand this very difficult topic, so the Manjushri tells him to read the great works such as Buddha Palita and Chandrakirti's Clear Words, which is a commentary on the Madhyamaka Karika, Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom. And then he also tells him to rely very specifically, out of all the masters or the gurus that Ajahn Rinpoche has, he tells him to seek out one guru from the land of the snow, which is a Rendawa, and to ask him to explain this complicated topic of the relation between dependent origination and emptiness. And then again, Rendawa encourages him to read the text and to do the accumulations, and also then to then sort of go away and think about it, and then and encourages Jay Rinpoche to actually come up with his own uncommon, understanding of what that dependent origination means. So these are all sort of pith instructions passed on to Lama Tsongkhapa from Manjushri, and so it's a very important. We see this later. So Jay Rinpoche, in all of his later texts, such as the Lama, great special insight, and also the Ocean of Reason, we see Rinpoche saying again and again about the fundamental importance of the fact that phenomena, although they're empty, are able to function. And so this is advice from Jay Rinpoche about where to place our effort, and we need to sort of slowly to habituate ourselves to these understandings.
파바도 사탕보 니바 숨바 시바 아바 파도 돈이도비 시럽이야바 하바도 사모똥반니다 아니 베 모숨도 냐바샤 투구여바 덴제기 투모마이베다 파베 냠샤 덴제지 예바 이나양 사투베가서 셔럴 타버 투구레 세야디 송니엔덴 드베 춘이 모숨도 통바 딜때니 아니 필드 중아 앞에 즉 셔럽 통당 민다지고 딜때니 연구요와 인도선배 아니 제장가 아니 미게 와들이야 지더롱에 속은 달라도 맹된 기구지기 트바 있어도 말을 짐바다 수림도 서바다 준주도 삼등이 셔럽데 뚱니도비 셔럽이 선배고 면에 냠낸 체지 연구요래데 다스 딜레가서 송년단 드라베 추니 통당 민자지 디간도 유도선배 텔레데네 아니 신이 양 짐바당와도 수림송을 서바 공부하디 민자지요래에서야지 또 고쳐도 와 대인도선배 신이 아니 심지 두배 가서 신의 동료도비 셔럽이 선배 권에 아니 짐바도 수림송과 대인도선배 나를 짐바당와도 수림송과 서바 공부하디 메킹기 메카시직도 순전 샤바이나 아니 이 거울에 말래 하고야 개요 말해 다디 하고 요 말세도 콜 코아지지 균은 누구요레스 다 미가 nemba 디카르레스나 아니 중년의 주닝원성도 통된 얘기 아니 셔럽들이스 이 셔럽들 때네 아니 제바당와 수준성 서버공바이나 디 퇴직이랑 가상한 줄 알았나시 민지글람도 퇴직을람도 타치도 로그여봐 됐다. 인도전배 아니 심지 두배 가서 동리 통당 동리를 민다에 켜매버지 동리 통당을 민다에 켜바를 예배 토네 아니 네가서 심지 두번디 토모만 예배 아니 냐바 샤당 주요래 시제 어디를 주고는 지금으로
And so here, in the sixth chapter, here we're talking about this very uncommon sort of wisdom which is different from the wisdoms that have been attained in the previous chapters, but in the previous grounds. So yeah, in the from the first ground, Bodhisattva ground, up to the fifth ground, which there's the wisdom of emptiness, the wisdom of emptiness directly perceiving the profound meaning of directly perceiving the profound meaning of emptiness, in single pointed direct meditation on on that target of emptiness. But here in the sixth ground, this wisdom that's attained here is of a superior nature, in that it is this wisdom which is also directly in direct meditative equipoise, but also in this kind of reflection, like such the sort of understanding of dependent origination, and what's being said here is that this is a complete form of wisdom. In verse 2 of chapter 6, it says, just as a single man with eyes can easily lead a group of blind people to their desired destination, here too intelligence leads the sightless virtues and guides them to the conqueror's state. Now, this is sort of talking about actually sort of I think that what's being said here is this sort of delineating between those wisdoms which are the meditative equipoises, and wisdoms which are of selflessness, which are presented in the earlier grounds, which are still not connected with this wisdom with sort of reflection, like understanding of suchness. And so and what's also been talked about here, when it says a single man with eyes can easily lead a group of the blind, is the single man with eyes is this special uncommon wisdom, which is able to then turn all of the practices of the other perfections, the generosity, etc., into paths which don't lead us into rebirth in samsara, but lead us, sort of the ripening doesn't take place in samsara, but instead of the ripening path, the liberating path. And so this wisdom of reflection, like wisdom, is able to lead us towards the liberating path. So it's an uncommon, it's not the object is not uncommon, but the uncommon way of seeing that object is what leads us to the liberating path.
남샤 민도지 레원도 제베 아니 디기 데시 뷰타슈 경켄데 타수르샤스드 고블로르샤스 동번인 대신 때문에 망부도스 다 베진 고블로르 마페 응알에 망부요 물어봐 대 고블로르디 산제 줌딘디기 주 약슈드르샤스 가전스나 콩기 동번이 리시경인데 다들 심지 두고 값소 아니 원도 초과세게 아니 동반이의 냐버 샤당 그 리시디 그 탁슈지 중도 덴디 덴디 가사 다 되게 강을 여번에 신
Deeper samgi. Denjin drawa chunga genigi.
아니 사메테 코나니 시에 리시디 공부 가위 정도 파셔 년에 야 고랑게 나로를 야다 제주 시온데 공부루루는 신 수지 또 수지랑 마시게 제장가 공부루루 대 송년 지름 좀 말다 반년 나와 잡게 되는 송샤스 제장가 반년 나와 잡기 다 공부루루 송 딘지디 자침부 대 아니 리시 준비 갑라스 아니 아니 다지 다지 디망보 요레스 롱덴선도 다주도 아주 되나마 오체 다 개치슈디 얼버디 마소네 야가르기 케바 제 상제 좀 된디가 로마 나로라야 아니 동닝인데 시방부 경계 망보지 충분 고물루도 그녀를 망보지 충분할 때 고물루도 코나 담보에 가르에서나 아니 심지 두비 값소 아니 시럽 아빠 시럽 하고 통당데 아니 땡진 동화 진위 권에 땡지 딩니 땡지 진이 되고 잠시기 아니 사면대 코나니 세 대시 비 다시 견인데 한 고물루도 코나를 샤스 네 인도 점배 고물루도기 제소 좀 코나 책임스 반대 나와서 코나스 동제 제네마 승계 주보게 좀 탐자지 내리기도 와 딩년이야 에 내려 좀 탐자디 운에는 슝 전반 제베가 좀 탐자디 년년리요 봐 슝경이 행해려 내려야 다 몸을 루르고 숨어나 지다티 추서 쳐도 봐 롱당 신야 그거 임베나 다들 파벌로도 슝루리 지들레베 룩신 저버 차스 다 고물루루 코너를 인다스 피아바나시 지는 저 시작만 고물루루 코너는 해진 저 시작이 있어야 돼 심지 두 배가 서로 좀 탐자시고 도스 레고도 와
And so here in this sixth chapter, it would be this uncommon sort of way of seeing the profound emptiness through this sort of lens of reflection, like understanding. And so this the person who sort of explained this in the most profound way was actually Nagarjuna. But of course, Nagarjuna was born in the world much earlier than Chandrakirti. But actually, Nagarjuna's explanation of this subject, which then occurs here in Chandrakirti's sixth chapter of Entering the Middle Way, this uncommon way of understanding emptiness and dependent relation, this meditative equipoise, profound meditative equipoise. The meditative equipoise and the profound emptiness and dependent origination. It's only in the throughout when we look through the history of all of the great Indian masters, it's only Nagarjuna who was able to identify this. So this is what Chandrakirti's sort of being saying here. So he mentions in the third verse of chapter 6 here, one who has realized the utterly profound truth through scripture and through reasoning as well was the noble Nagarjuna. So I will expand here his tradition as it appears in his treatise. So what I think is Chandrakirti is specifically referring to there is this uncommon, in chapter 6 here, this uncommon understanding of, deep understanding of emptiness and dependent origination. I mean, this there are scriptural quotations for the sort of prophecy, the Buddha's prophecy of the coming of Nagarjuna. But if we look in the reasons, to sort of reasons to support this, then we find that this explanation of selflessness, wisdom of emptiness, combined with the dependent origination, is a tradition that comes through from Nagarjuna through to Chandrakirti, because it was Chandrakirti holds Nagarjuna in such great esteem, and therefore Chandrakirti is kind of explaining that Nagarjuna is the sort of primary exponent of that understanding of dependent origination and emptiness.
Oh. So hydration break.
Hydration break. Oh, and so so that's, sorry, I missed out the bit. So that's where this where it talks about in this very first chapter, where it talks about the very first, under the first verse of the chapter, where it talks about this the condition, the conditional world of the dependent origination, this sort of and being like the sort of it has a reflection like suchness, which brings in the understanding of the conditional world of dependent origination into the profound seeing of the profound suchness is a this is what Chandrakirti is saying comes all the way back to the tradition of Nagarjuna. So this Nagarjuna is the one who is the exponent, the primary exponent, the first exponent of that throughout all the great masters of the Indian tradition. Yeah, the profound truth, the basis is the profound truth of dependent origination of mere conditionedness.
Master program da, basic program da mangu jang. Na laba do jawar bachi ngomuludu shio za chenpo res. Ani umajugo za chenpo chada. Ani nalindage zugi gendu dewe da ngomuludu seti. Sanje jumden digi gyuyak shoyde ngomuludu yores. Karchini lagu yores lagu zambeta shumane lendi na dowa. Chezanga ani jinsu parjin chugi nyamne sa 당보 니바 숨바 시방아바 투바 듬바 제바 고바 쭈바 파도 냠nen도 시원들 선배 아니 셰럽기 냠nen 퓨드 중앙 세디 아니 대셔자와도 선배 단다 대니 쉬어는 신시시 되게 토라 땡징 저버 준비 권 아니 동바니스 대셔 잡긴데 딱 고불루들 하고지 중요 말에 아 리지 대셔 맞아베나 동바지고 때나 파고도 준비 세미나로야 동바코 엔디기 제수 가와 잼마체치 가와 매베 김진 가르에서나 딱 최단지 아니 듀마타부 드레스라도 셈베 엔 최단지 주마레스 엔 최단지 덴바마르 아니 최단지 다 도스 요르스야 되니 로 추베고로 우선 로데 서로시 통데 엔 세미나로야 최체의 바지 최 전력이라는 게 삼로 매번 차로야 돼 용구유도 선배 아니 땡진 더블 중외 대코나니 통원도 선배 동일이야 쇼지 가와 용해야 돼 아니 동번이 통와 될 때니 내게 띵중의 남샤 야로 통한도야 군주의 남샤 야로 통한도야 레준적인 남샤의 셀로 돼야지 드리지기 링츠니에 돼 고물로를 유약셔여자 항아죠 고물로를 그저 상게 있어요 좀 제대로 돌아
And so here what's been spoken about is this sort of reason why we're actually followers of why this tradition is a follower of the tradition of Nagarjuna and the importance of Nagarjuna in explicating this extremely profound topic of relationship between dependent origination and emptiness. And so people gathered here, of course, people hopefully will start to study the text. You have many sort of programs in order to engage with this material, such as the basic program and the master's program and such. And then, so these, will help to understand these complicated topics. We see His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Again and again extolling the great value of and virtues of Nagarjuna's view, and also Chandrakirti's text entering the middle May. And why is it that he holds Nagarjuna in such high regard? Well, the answer to that is that we have the 6 perfections, or an extended version of the 10 perfections, all of which, from generosity to skillful means, and all of these full set of the 10 perfections. But out of these 10 perfections, the most kind of crucial is that of the perfection of wisdom. And particularly within the relationship to the perfection of wisdom, it's this understanding of there's no other person than master than Nagarjuna who really explained this perfection of wisdom in a way which connects dependent origination to the empty nature of things. So, for instance, if we are and all other sort of masters don't sort of stress that connection at all, and so if we were only to meditate purely on the kind of empty nature of things, and then even if we were able to get some kind of understanding of that, there would be no kind of we would have no delight anything because we just feel like once you think then you feel like all the sort of regular conventional phenomena that they're actually all false, they're not real, they don't really exist, they're not real, and then and that they're all sort of product or encountered through mistaken mind. And so, but what we need is an understanding of the depend. Sorry, and so our Dharma, this will not give us great inspiration to be able to have a wish to really engage with Dharma teachings. It lacks any kind of delight or joy, and it may weaken our interest in the Dharma. So we need an understanding of the emptiness and the seeing of emptiness, which needs to the understanding of which will actually strengthen our understanding of dependent origination, strengthen our understanding of the presentation of the conventional world and the world of karmic cause and effect, and so in this way we can then walk in the footsteps of the followers of this system.
미탐질기 코트베지다 미탐질 미탐질이야 아니 셰초바다 아니 지금 미탐질기 딜이야 냠린체 초조지 여러베 에스지지 아니 저거지 땅백가려야 아니 디길랜들이야 아니 반대다와 타베기 아니 시제디 송시 소소 기유트나 동번이 된 나도라도 가와양다 야도쇼 라도 가와는 치미 밀린시 르지 바보당와 두와 간여바 텔란 조버선들로 사변해 진이녀와 되면은 되인데 텔라 담배된게 땜바 차 아시지 내 송도 다 사모동번이 년킹기 미디기 사모당나 가르쳐 거라 어디지 마송도가 티베nen가 참부래 제장가 아란조 망부지도 동번이 고지 동번이 고주 준비 가와케요 말을 아니 교화의 개용을 아니 가와다 교니가 매도 준비는 버르질러다 아들들이 면로 세지 아니 베질 가서래 뒤통해야 되지 가서래 respect 라로 해서는 쉬운 거 알아 제가 들려야다 배 받아 나와다 세부서나치 동번이 내용문이 되게 고요래 시도서배 냥킹게 내들려야 다 같이 동번이 그 거의 뒤 원배가봐야 셈나로 아와시오 직들레와야지 최단지 코랑경은 요 말다 슬라드 선배 아니 신이 가와 양내양도 제지 고요래스 나 딘디기 충배 따들 가리는 거를 수도 아니 명리 치마 양양 맞다 르지 포고 당을 왔다 담제때 그 냠도로 봐 슈기로 봐 레토에지 요래스 다 딘디기 강사들라야 아니 조베 산지로 사변유 수도 전에 산지 교답이나 알아서 추구 주베게다 사변티 유스 대다가라는 도비에 쓰고다 담아도 지금야 디 지단에 참 심지 탐지 줄디 알아서 캡데 유도 전에 한디 가실려 말서 거나야 대우요 말바디 이 가르송 거르스나 세대를 깔려 자외나 슈 잡투에게 네버디 여러 말에 세대라 도메 산젤로 사변 유메 딘데 세대를 슈 자외디 유디메 세디 동반 얘기 되는데 퇴바 다가란 게 가와 쉬우게 거야 우요레스 그냥 뒤치송다
Et
And so is it, sort of wondering if it's, possible to understand all of these. Is it possible for us to understand all of these points and these aspects, these profound aspects, and to be able to practice them be able to sort of properly implement and practice them? In the next two verses of the text, verses 4 and verses 5, Chandrakirti talks about what is considered a suitable vessel for for someone to hear about emptiness, and what happens to someone who is the experience of someone who is a suitable vessel for emptiness, where it reads, even ordinary persons, when hearing about emptiness, sheer joy surges again and again within their heart. Tears born of such joy fill their eyes, and their hair stands up in their follicles. Such people have the seed of perfect Buddhahood. They are the perfect vessels for this teaching. To them you should teach the sublime ultimate truth. From them the ensuing qualities will come to birth. So here, a lot of us have sort of encountered the teachings about emptiness and dependent origination, but we don't actually, in some sense, we don't really sort of either develop a tremendous joy in relation to those, nor do we get completely downhearted about them. If we don't really sort of actually, we often don't really have a very strong feeling about it. We kind of almost lose respect, in a sense, for this topic. And what Chandrakirti is kind of clearly saying to us here is that even for ordinary people, if they sort of with the correct sort of the most suitable vessel, the correct vessel for these to receive these teachings, then they will. These are the sort of signs that when they hear this teaching that things don't exist from their own side, they will have the joy which surges. You go from joy to joy, and these are sort of external signs of an internal sort of process, sort of explicit signs of things that happen to them. So they have and it says in the verse 6.5, where it says that each such people have the seed of perfect Buddhahood. So the seed here would be seed right here in this life. They have the seed which will be able to, which is the seed of the seed of to attain the form body of the Buddha. And so therefore you should teach them the sublime ultimate truth. And for them, the ensuing qualities will come to birth. And so here, when we ask about whether there is the potential, to have the seed or the potential to understand these teachings, and this is describing what sort of vessel is suitable to receive those teachings.
단디 오늘 전에 계절 견사 시부들이 시도 배 직된다 못된바 저불링기 섬미섬로다 못된바 아다디 배디 튜네 배 차다 자원이네 배 튜네 배 견사 시부지 시도 섬제 아니 아주마 손을 다 코도야 랑네 딕 니도 심바모지 차네 뭐냐들 요러 저는 뭐가 말한저 드디 연구매도 마도시 다다배나 르베 잉예선도 샤샤나 아니 코랑 꿈지 파고 토메르 봐 파고 토메 심전백이 따와 아니 라와도 태워친백이 슝당 라와도 사모 동번 얘기 따와 최게 담에 대백이 저저 참으로 직마 송도 전배 아니 르베 잉예 균에 별로 올세도 르베 잉예 파고 토메 틀 슈토요 말했어 어디도 가르쳤다 사모 동번이 통원도 전배 초화지 딩기요 봐 초이 양은 대화 시부지 딩기요래 야나 시 동해에서 쓰마르데 미디어스 거 미디어 시부지 차 Aranzolia, Poru de Lache, Devati Mevche, Ani, the media de Mevche. Amra yi me wa ndi ka de che res ndi shui ni shui de chen be gen de de ba re song re che zang ga zu dong ni kwa dang zhe ge yo ma de dong ni ka de che de pe ju chi ge yo me de ha gu yo ma re che zang ga dan da gen ge ni be ti du be ja sang wa ro cha re de ne de gen de de so de me ne ya da da le ge wang ko gu me yin ji ro ba che zang ga ba dan da wa che ge me ge jiran zu de de che sha 재산 단다 심지 투비 기드네메게 단다 당고 카도르야 니 요모 견나말로 지소라 달리죠 로요 통주신 나는 디유도 도지 nen조 바에 다는 거 같이 nen조에 다고다나 신고하고 그래서 인경가 라브저 점세 재산을 nen조에 다고도 선배 아니 지금 다스니데 가와도 슬람산 제 조조르면도 다스니데 년라 담산 맞에 오면라 요모기 샤베 께 동해들라베 이순치 동해 차바도 지금 동해의 동해 교배동이 차바도지 동해의 이순치 아니 이 매버스야 동해의 자와의 개화를 샤지 개화의 매버스에게 탁셔들이야 아니 얘기다 레단 영문이 매버 마수요 봐도 아 동해의 나르고 요즘 내 매버스고도 아니 레 매버스에게 탁셔 때스지 되네 영문 매버스에게 탁셔지 다 레단 영문 니가 매버스에 갑라 다 레스니데 코 도야 세다 매버지 뉴스에 녀모를 갑대자 녀모를 갑대자 온데 저에 녀모를 망고 시우 주여베 나로는 답변은 되차 손로디 마가에게 답시 가수 제대베나야 권내가 뭐지버서요 마도 지금 땐도도 스케메버 마차베디 가르서는 당동양 리지의 시직하기도스 미디 시금이도스 미버지 단돌 하루도 당신 내가서 되차제서기 미버디 조금 가를 띄어서도 나도 좀 당신들 때 기도스 다 당진들로 전전에 양다버에 또 세주셰버 걸라 안으로 로바지 린데 로 로벌 때네 인데도 탐지기고 살아도 잠베 신다 로 로바데 로 양다버지 고미샤베이나 되게 록초 독초 로 양다버데 가로 그런 곰견도 대비시나 안에 대다다 좀 미게봐 네 지금 미게봐 마세 땡도 미게봐 온거 봤어야 돼 아니 말라와도 시제 곰도 잡에 nen조바이 다는 거 같이 딘지기 냠nen체기 듬바디 림바도스 로고도 딘지 조원도 딘지 간사데라 신이 동반이기 담도 통도 잡에 가와제 고급 친구지도 와스 나란조에 딘지고 무스레스 아니 겐가로 나올 때네 아니 세상가 나란조 년을 단다什么 동반이리야 최섬체가 가라 가와 수신부 연구민도네 가와 간테스 랭고고요. 니게 탑시들이야 도저지 슈자야디 내가 전부 시버르셔 제장을 심지 두배 거소미게 즉지 두두지 송바데 양도 알아줘 동반이게 냠내 친도 니질라디 냐바도 원도 손도지 플레미너리 손도지 협단내 더 고고 있으래
And so here in terms of so that in terms of not all sort of so what is being said is that not all vessels people are a suitable vessel for the receiving of the teachings on emptiness, and not first of all looking at who is a suitable vessel for the teachings on emptiness, but for what we can say very clearly is who is not a suitable vessel for to receive the explanation on emptiness and dependent origination, and that is someone who will really, as soon as we sort of explain these teachings on emptiness, that they will become extremely unhappy, that they would feel that it's in complete opposition to the way of the world. It's a sort of a kind of a path leading to an annihilation, or extreme of sort of the extreme of sort of nihilism, that it's kind of really kind of weird and not in accord with the way that things seem to be. And so for these people who have that very strong negative reaction towards the teachings on emptiness, those would not be considered a suitable lesson, and it would be not correct to teach them. There's a sort of history about Vasubandhu and his master Asanga, who was Vasubandhu and Asanga, where Asanga was developed a view connected with the mind-only school and was started to practice in the Mahayana tradition, cultivating the understanding of the selflessness of persons. And Vasubandhu, who was focused more on the Sautantric or Vaibhashika Sautantric view, couldn't stand it and was unable to bear to hear these teachings and understandings, and kind of ran away from Asanga. So then again, not a suitable vehicle, not a suitable vessel for those teachings. And so in terms of encountering this profound understanding of emptiness, we need some kind of, strong feeling, either whether that's a feeling of joy and delight in meeting them, or even a fear of an uncomfortable feeling. But different. We kind of seem to just kind of remain quite equanimous in relation to emptiness. Actually, we don't really have this tremendous sense of joy, and we don't tremendous sense of discomfort at hearing the teachings. And I also had this experience and approached my teacher and asked him about why I don't really have much joy in relation to this topic. I don't have much fear. And Gen said, "Oh, that's the way that you're approaching it. The way that you're, why are you engaged in this topic of emptiness, and what are you using that? What's the purpose of studying and using that knowledge for?" And so, in the 6th chapter, verse 120 of the 6th chapter of Madhyamavactara, talks about how all the mental afflictions and all the faults of samsara all stem from the a view of identity view, and the object of that identity view is the self, and therefore the yogis negate the self. So this is giving us a context of the way that the yogis engage. How do they engage with the topic of emptiness and of selflessness? That's in the section on refuting the self of persons later in this 6th chapter. And so here is sort of someone who understands the way the mental afflictions and all the faults that stem from those, the 3 kinds of suffering, and wishing to eliminate those forms of suffering and to cut these root of suffering for good, and understanding that within the root of suffering lie the mental afflictions and the karma, and until those are destroyed, then we will continue to the person will continue to suffer. But then they're sort of looking at mental afflictions and karma. Karma doesn't seem something which is possible. It seems to be kind of endless and almost impossible to completely exhaust the karma. And so but even then if we look at the mental afflictions as a way, a sort of target to focus on, then there are many forms of mental affliction. And so then looking really to the basis of all, the place which is the kind of root of the our mental afflictions, and what lies at the kind of, what's the real kind of focus point or reference that out of which all the attachment, these faults, the mental afflictions arise, and we find that to be a self-grasping. And then we look at the self-grasping and see whether that self-grasping is truly in accord with the reality, or in examining whether it's a mistaken mind or not. And then if we find that it's a mistaken form of mind, then if we were able to develop the mind which engages with its object in direct counterpoint to that, then that will be able to cut through this ignorance, and then cut away all of the self-grasping, the mental afflictions. And this is the stages through which a yogi operates. And so then when they engage with emptiness in this context, then they see it as a tremendous opportunity. They have great joy and for contemplating these profound topics. And then because then they understand what what it is this understanding is being used for. So this is a very important point that we should keep in mind, and you should also look at that verse 6:120 in preparation for the later teaching.
아디 개개미도 nga 가르쳐고 해서게 소화도 휴식무지 리기요바디 저런부지 킹기요단 저런부지 되게 다가난 거 같들이야 아니 동리기 된 친지만 로바 퇴바다 즉 아니 디기 디 가르쳐고 된다 상황 고용도 준비 아니 신이 셈 나로려야 아니 지 가르쳐고 배 가와 밤에 지게지 용도 준비 네 다음에 출루와 다음에 출발 친구들이스 르기 바보 당와 줘봐다 매년 치마 되면 참아 다음에 출발现在 참들 년당만 신에 미주 된바다 아니 가서 그래 르기 바보 당와 줘봐 용구로 봐 좋아 그다음에 용적으로 봐 제상가 동력이 된 친지 말라와 퇴바디 백해 친구들이스 될 때니 고아 레온도 준비 아니 다도 용구들이스 이나양 다 가서 그래 동력이 된디 친지 말라발 네 년비 슈라 아니 된디 고야 고 이나야 아니 지금 단통양 가와 빠도 매바 제야다 너 초아 슈충부 마제나 아니 가르치고래 네버도 가르치고래 실제로 뭐지 라브제들 가르치면서나 라마 담배 고할입니다나스 다디 라마 담배 고할 만다고 그랬어 덴데디 네버도 미디디 돈한데 여디니치 동력이 된 친지 말로발라 퇴삼제 아니 디기 된데 양내 양도 고아직nen데 강사 찍라 냐바도 라마 담배 고할입니다 가지고 라마 담배 고할입니다 된 가르스는 라마 디기 친주 멜로베 냠낸 제제 탈라마디양 베 사토보들이 게 말에 될 때는 그쪽 초아 숙심분 렌데니 그들이 지금 틀어 대체 한 라마 디기 냠도 직소소 간연다도 또 수지 파시 근데 라마가 송시제도 양내 양도 봐도 是年的为呢 라마 담배 고할입니다 도 수지 로주 충분히나 제장단다 개회신이 세티 개회신이 그 친이 약속이 네 가발 제송스도 아니 예세 통해 상배가 라랑 소듐 나로 되니 니엘라 가서래 페이지 가서래 TV 당고디 가래 통해봐 통해 베기 친이도 송도 잠배 아니 소수기 지기 독자 제야를 삼로냐 바탕야를 드저 탐지 디 로봇이 틀되네 깔리 큐니 매니 엔진 거용도나 독자 제시가 상황 거용도나 디 조건이 베기 친이를 있어 다 조고 야고서야 돼 개회신이 지금 가르잖아 디테일 되네 아니 지금 남샤균도 소속 깔려 얘네 마제바 알라마디 틀 되고 개겐디 틀 되네 조고디 틀 되고인데 아니 지금 예 남주 제야디 지금 퀄리티스만 다 용도도 가르제스 아니 신의도 고용해야 지금 고용해야지 소소래 고용해야지 용도나 안디 개회신이었어 비야고도 디나신 단다 디나로 제름버시 라마 타베 고할면다나 시드 딘디기 쿠유지다 딘디기 아니 람땡겐게 라마지기 냠도도 시제 양내 양도 봐 시거드 마손에 도스 리주 총버지 총버이나 아니 돈이도 비리 네버 망고 쉬고 제 응아르메바 삽도 조야기 고급이어래 해서 도스 남아나
So here in relation to Chandrakirti is sort of talking about the sort of qualities of it, of someone who wishes to, who is a suitable vessel to understand these teachings, and we it's and the need for us to to understand how, if we're not able to understand, start to learn about this topic of emptiness and start to understand some of the points about it. But as is described in the, I'm just trying to find the right, described in the Rimpoche's commentary to these verses, where it talks about the sorry, just find the verse. It talks about these qualities, and then they will sort of have this sort of immense joy and feeling. Of course, it describes things such as breaking into tears, and having our sort of our hair stand up on end when we hear the practice. But of course, that's there's many feelings that could bring that about. So it doesn't necessarily mean that would be related to our actual understanding of emptiness. But if we were able to develop some form of emptiness, then J. Rimchi says in qualities. So he says that these are the physical signs that emerge from these factors of the person hearing the discourse on emptiness and understanding what is being heard. Then such signs indicate unmistakably that the person is a suitable vessel. In contrast, if the person does not understand the meaning, or even if he does, if the signs do not arise, one cannot determine for the time being that they are a suitable vessel for the profound truth. Even so, if they adhere to the dictates of his sublime teachers, such a person may in the future become a suitable vessel to deposit numerous new potencies for realizing emptiness. So what he's saying here is, the way in which if we were able to, even if we're not able to manifestly understand everything, but at least if we have, or the signs don't occur in us, if we're able to have some understanding, and then we rely on the kind of sublime gurus, and are able to work sort of very productively and as a guru and sort of student with a virtuous friend, then it may be possible. It would be possible for us to lay down these sort of potencies to be able to understand in the future. And Tomi Sammo, in his I think 37 Practices of a Bodhisattva, talks about the kind of definition of a virtuous friend. First of all, he talks about the definition of negative friends, and how negative friends are those who sort of who are bad behavior and negative ways of thinking increase when we come into contact with them, whereas a virtuous friend will be someone, it could just be a friend, but also in relation to a Lama or a student, how the closer we come to them, the more positive qualities we develop, our behavior improves. And so this is the one who reveals the path to us. We listen to the teachings on them, and eventually we may be able to lay down propensities to understand this topic.
여자 담제가에 게제 말에 다 가르가고 요래 한가제 진배 록 되지고 요래 세지 마 송도 준비 연도스디 내가 정보 연도 준비 연디 또兄弟 参把 로아래 제상가 단다듯이 때문에 고지 조비네야 또스만 로디 제전디 년이야 참들샤 인공수 인접 주주 시디시간 봐 시디시간에 두어버들 봐 그래 시디시간에 우리가 저기 고주 주체.
So the next topic that comes up after these verses that we've just discussed is then the text moves on to identifying the object of negation, and particularly this is true of Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary, the Illuminating the Intent, where there's a big discussion of object of negation, and then when we talk about the object of negation, there are these questions about what are we negating, how much do we negate, and what kind of mind is it that is the mind which is the mind which is able to negate the object negation. And so this is a complicated topic, so I think we'll deal with this in the afternoon from the session from 4:30 to the evening.
사면 다 로마부지 이 다름살아 친이 더상이야 로정장 대브레 다 기시 된사고 아 뭐에 진짜 오마리 어 데리고 아 진짜 오마 봐도마도 따투요 말이 대부분이 저도 왕아도 저 따지 답에 베데 알을 하고 차대 다다 네 파주도 기주 로버트 chen 로디 요래 이나야 심 소르지 나라 다 지랑조 어 Lama seju zembe yang zugu zuji ko jewa nga ma ne jig re singa son ro da ko yang jig kurang kurang be background lo ga ro ba je sang ko nga ju jig chue shi du zembe yang chamre tiran zo li ya dag da de gi mi shen de ena yang da jig Alex son ro sa bin son ro ko nan zo background de tiran zo jigu jig yang re 근데 이 군주 양 지금 철당다 그런 좀 야매 sha당다 근데 그 양 지금 고급지 또 알렉산더지 난 어베지 미즈간 보다베 철당 사역 대인도 전에 그런 이 체년다 전부를 저장 미세를 시작하고 있어요 말을 저랑 저 되어들린 고급 제약이 아니 주저 상부지를 알아도 되고 지난 얘기다 사면이야 산이 믹스기 등재지这些 선이 쇼게 수주 주원의 주지버도 내시 주지는 중립봐도 사면 고랑게 매직이 노주도 주여체 되는 고랑게 최체도 삼무당당한테 빼져 대비기 안에 고랑 교상 가라라 유매체 근데 로지간다 또지 주주직 스마슴지 고랑게 직전 저랑 계주에 보고 체시 대려 중하스 전주 가상연의 전주 달렌트지 제로치스 사면이야 디 리쿠스티 한산이 어디듯이 나로나
The Gilgore. So tomorrow we'll do a session from 10 to 12. So this afternoon we'll continue with the text. Tomorrow we'll do some explanation from 10 to 12. There'll be a session from 10 to 12. So I'll speak from Rimpoche. Rimpoche will speak from 10 to 11, and then from 11 to 12, Rimpoche has requested me to speak about my life and history or something. It's I'm not going to. But so I studied a little bit in the dialectic school, and I was in the class below Rimpoche in the dialectic school, and so I completed the program at the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, and so people like Alex here with me today, who's been has dedicated his entire life to the practice, the study and practice of the Dharma. And so you have a very strong background in these things, and these so it when we talk about gurus, then with the gurus sort of having these qualities and realizations from past lives to the present lives, but then people like Alex and Simon are sort of more in like the ordinary version of me. Can I stop, please? So we're doing a bit of Q&A with and she and again, bow, sa, she, do, me, intending, no, me, do, welcome, and now, down, finishing, and now, check, above, so,